wabarakatuh.
I can go ahead.
Yes, please, sir.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulil. My dear brothers and sisters over there, I greet you to that traditional way of greeting in Islam, which is Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And honestly, I really appreciate this as a precious opportunity to share my thought on this topic, why Islam is my choice, with you all there. Well, I should start by way of introduction. Why have I decided to speak on this particular topic? Why Islam is my choice? Because in Nigeria here, even in the UK here, where you are all resident, there are choices. In a situation where there are no choices, it could be concluded that willingly one has to be a Muslim, but that is not the issue. And even more so, common observation reveal that the quantity is the majority among those of us who are Muslims. Many of us who are in Islam, Islam is not in us. So when we are discussing this type of topic, why Islam is my choice, some people may question us, why are you even talking about religion? But we answer such people saying, studies in psychology reveal that every human being is a worshiper by instinct. He either worships normally or abnormally. And as Muslims, we believe that we are not created in vain. In the Quran chapter 3, verse 190, Allah says, Inna fi khalqi samawati wal ard wa atilafi al-layli wan nahar la ayatin li ulil albab alladhina yadhkuruna Allaha qiyaman wa qu'udan wa ala junubihim wa yatafakkaruna fi khalqi samawati wal ard rabbana ma khalaqta hadha batila subhanaka fakina adhaban nar. In that verse of the Quran, it is stated declaratively that Allah has not created this world in vain. Now, as Muslims, we believe that Allah is our creator and He has a purpose for our creation. Just like if you want to use this typical example of a manufacturer has a purpose for manufacturing a particular product. The use of every product is determined by its manufacturer. No product determines its own use. In like manner, our purpose in life is predetermined by Allah, as contained in Quran chapter 51, verse 56, when Allah says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونِ. I have not created the jinns and the men, but to worship me. Worship is so important that we must choose wisely and appropriately. And how do we go about this? Now, I want to base the premise of this discussion on postulation of marketing experts. Marketing experts, they do say that every good product must have unique selling point, USP. And you can imagine how 7-Up leverage on its own unique selling point as a caveat to outsmart and outwit Coca-Cola, saying the difference is clear. So in discussing this part, we want to discuss why Islam is my choice in the context of unique selling points of Islam. And the unique selling points of Islam are so many, numerous. Things that render Islam so unique, so incomparable to any other form of faith. One of these is universality. From the beginning, now, where I want to discuss a particular topic, why Islam is my choice in the context of a unique selling point of Islam, things that render Islam unique. Islam was designed to be a world religion. In 1 verse 7, Allah was speaking to the prophet. We have not sent you, O Muhammad, but as a messenger to the whole world. For us to know that Islam was designed to be a world religion, let us start from the name of Islam. Why is it Islam? When you compare some other religions to the name Islam, Christianity is a derivative of a Christ. Christ, Christian, Christianity. And you know that in Yoruba land here, every religion takes its name either from its founder or from the place where it originated. Whereas Islam originated and flourished in in the Arabian land. If Islam were not to be divine, if Islam were not to be universal, perhaps it could have been called Arabicism. Perhaps it could have been called Quraism because the prophet was from a Quraysh tribe. Islam, when you are talking along the line of Islam, there is nothing like raciality, no tribality, and no nationality. Islam is for all. The word Islam is an attributive title. Now, when you see a religion like Hinduism, you know where it comes from. When you see a religion like Hinduism, Buddhism, you know where it comes from. Islam is not like that. Along the line of the universality of Islam, even when you see the worship, the pattern of worship in Islam, let us start from a salat. A Muslim is required to worship at respective times in a day. The way of worship in Islam is definable. You cannot peculiarize worship in Islam. You cannot even territorialize it. Worship in Islam is solid. And this is why a Muslim who is staying in, let's use Lagos as an example. If a Muslim is residing in Yaba and it is time for any of the 5 daily acts of worship, the Muslim in Yaba does not have to migrate from Yaba to Shomolu for the purpose of worship, because the way worship is observable in a particular place is the way the worship is also observable elsewhere. Let me use this as an example. One of our brothers went to one of the states in Nigeria called Eponyi for his national youth service. And the brother was reporting a sumptuous story to us. He said, on a Thursday, we NYC member normally observe a community day. They were there, Muslims and non-Muslims, and by the time it was a time for Zuhr prayer, one Muslim just decided to purchase a bag of pure water. Another Muslim went to a corner and did their dance, called to prayer. And every one of them, as Muslims, they were falling, they were just answering the call. Meanwhile, somebody who was not a Muslim, an Igbo man, was just watching them attentively. And at the end of the worship, this brother reported to us that man called him and was speaking in broken English. That man, we for go shout for that particular place. Which kind of medicine did you say? No tell me, say, no, they use medicine. If you know they use medicine, as he comes out there, and that is what is called, is referring to as shouting. All of you now, you just fall to you just go to the place where you wash your hand, wash your mouth, put water for inside the nose, you turn that for front, you turn that for in back. As you bend down, you knock your head for ground, you knock your head for ground. No time me say, no, they use medicine. And our brother told him that it's not a question of medicine. It's because of the universality, characteristics, and uniqueness of worship in Islam. And when you are looking at the content of worship in Islam, the content of a worship in Islam, that is Salat, is the same. The timing is the same. The timing is the same. And the language of worship is also the same. And this makes it possible for Muslims who don't understand the language of each other and one another to worship together. It is only in Islam where a Muslim will just come from Nigeria or any part of the world and walk to a Muslim, to a mosque in UK where you are all residing there, and without asking any silly question, unnecessary question, he joins his Muslim worship to observe Salat without any problem. And you even see the chronology of Salat in Islam. Subuh, Zuhr, Asri, Maghrib, Isha. It is the same thing all over the world. And when you are talking along the line of universality in Islam, see Hajj, for example. Somebody was a commentator, was running commentary on the CNN, cable news network. That was in 2001. And I had the opportunity of listening to that particular person. And I appreciate them more, the universality, characteristics, and uniqueness of Islam. The man was commenting this way. And what he was saying at that particular time, I was able to memorize offhand. He said, these are the Muslims on the month of Arafah. They have come from different places across the world. They have never met one another before. They may not even meet one another again, but you can see them. They are dressed in the same white apparel, celebrating the name of the same God in the same language, at the same place, at the same time. This is a unique gathering that is incomparable to any other form of gathering, any other place in the world. It is only in Islam that that one is applicable. And I should recall, in 2017, I was invited for a lecture in the US. I was coming from Newcastle in New Jersey. And coming back to Nigeria, I boarded the plane around 11 a.m. And there was it was a connecting flight. By the time we got to where we were to stay or to stop, it was already Maghrib time. And I have not observed Zur, Asri, Maghrib. And as a traveler, I could observe Isha along with that. I just went to a place, performed my ablution, and I started praying. I was the only one who started the prayer. By the time I ended, by the time I wanted to pronounce a taslim, I discovered there are a lot of people from various places lying behind me. They have converted me to an instant imam. Why is that possible? It's because of the universality characteristics of Islam. And let me use a local example here. If you have, we have 3 distinct major languages or tribes in Nigeria: Hausa, Igbo, and Yoruba. If it is possible for a Muslim who is an Igbo man, a Muslim is an Hausa man, a Muslim is an Yoruba man, if the 3 of them happen to meet at the same place at the same time, and it is time for worship, any of them, if they are knowledgeable enough, any of them can lead the prayer, and there will be no barrier of language, no barrier in anything. They will worship together. And again, for us to know that when you are talking along the line of Islam being my choice, this is to ensure that we crystallize the conviction of a Muslim, reassurance that Islam is the way, because there are so many things that could draw attention of Muslims away from Islam this day. This is the essence of this type of a lecture. Again, when we are talking along the line of a unique selling point of Islam, see Islamic greeting. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum as a greeting is not limited to time, it's not limited to space, it's not limited to events. Unlike in English, greeting in English language is benchmarked by time. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And greeting in Yoruba language is benchmarked by time and event. When somebody is if they are celebrating, if it is a wedding program, they say Eku Nawo Yao. If it is somebody who just become deceased, Eku Dele. But whereas in Islam, the greeting is cut across. It is the lingua franca of Islam. Again, when we are talking along the line of unique selling point of Islam, comprehensiveness, the message of Islam is for all races, ages, and species, and civilization too. The message of Islam, as it is applicable to the past, is applicable to the present, and so will it be applicable to the future. That is Islam for you. Now, when you are talking, and this is the essence of what is contained in Quran chapter 6, verse 38, wherein Allah says, Ma faratna fil kitabi min shay'in. A Muslim does not need tutorial from anywhere. Talk of politics, Islam has provision for it. Talks of economics, Islam has a provision for it. Islam even has its own distinct calendar, protocol and procedures of whatever. It is in Islam there. For you to know again, along the line of comprehensiveness and universality of Islam, if a Muslim dies in Nigeria and another Muslim dies in UK, yet another Muslim dies in Saudi Arabia, in spite of contradistinction and contrariety in culture, all of them will be buried in the same way. Why? Because Islam, the message is comprehensive. And like I said, ab initio, it's not limited to ages, races, or species. Now, along the line of Islam being my choice, and why it should also be your own choice. Now, Allah, our creator, in our physiology, if you examine my palm, as I'm spreading my palm now, the left palm and the right palm too, it will be discovered that something like artistic designs are there. You can see just like artistic design. And honestly, these are Arabic figure 1 and 8. Again, the same thing here, 1 and 8. It means that the creation of every human being is Islam compliant. If anybody now decides that is not going to practice Islam, that person is living in disbelief and denial. You see, it's like a label. Allah putting his divine label on the physiology of every one of us. So it means that whether you like it or not, you have to be a Muslim. If you are not a Muslim, you are living in disbelief and denial. And when you are talking along the line of Islam, the unique selling point, why Islam is my choice, all these things, honestly, this is not a fantasy. These are existential realities. We are not dressing Islam in borrowed robe. These are existential reality. Now, let's talk along the line of theory and practicality. Islam is a combo. It's a combo of theory and practical. When Allah says Muslims should worship him, the way we Muslims worship, it is meant to teach us some lessons in non-arrogance. A Muslim must be humble. When you are praying, worshiping Islam is status blind. Your status, regardless of whatever is your status, you have to stand shoulder to shoulder, feet to feet with other Muslims, no matter your status. It is only in the mosque where all animals are equal and no animal is more equal than the other. Even the imam who has the preference of staying before the congregation, leading them, nothing is special about the imam. If the ablution of the imam becomes vitiated, and it is a 4 rakat prayer, for example, and his ablution becomes vitiated after completing the 2nd rakat, what happens? The imam has to step aside. Another person steps in. And by the time the imam steps aside, he goes out to perform, to renew his ablution. By the time he comes back, another person has become the imam, and that person is in the progress of completing the salah. That imam cannot go and meet that particular person and say, look at my face. I was the initial imam. It was because my ablution became vitiated that I went out. Leave this place for me. That is to show that even the imam has no special place in the mosque. Again, when you are talking along the line of Islam, being comprehensive, one non-Muslim, he accosted me sometimes. And why did he accost me? I just said that the Quran of the Muslim has something to say about everything. And he said, he heard the Quran and I said, this book, I am ready to ask you some penalty question. I said, ask reasonable question. You can even choose to ask any question that is somewhat unreasonable. It is answerable via the instrumentality of this Quran. And by the time he came up with his question, honestly, it was a somewhat senseless question. He said, if I want to become a baker and I purchase a bag of flour, how many 50 naira worth of bread can I get from a bag of flour? I said, I didn't tell you. I am a baker. I said, come off that. You say that your Quran contains answers, has answers to every question that could be raised. And what did I do? I just pick up my cell phone, call somebody who's very close to me, whom I know is a baker. Like one program they used to do in our place here, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? When they ask you a naughty question and you cannot answer it adequately, they say, call a friend. I just decided to call a friend. And after obtaining that and the right answer from that particular friend, I released the answer to him. And the man retortingly said, was it not in my presence here that you called somebody whom I suspect is a baker? And after obtaining the answer from me, you are now releasing the answer to me. I said, the guideline I use in obtaining the answer is contained in this Quran. And that is Quran chapter 16, verse 43. If there's anything you don't know, ask from those who know. And when you are talking along the line of Islam being my choice and should be your choice, dynamism. Islam, the message of Islam is very dynamic. It was even a non-Muslim who wrote this particular book. Quran is ahead of its time. Muslims know what others don't know. So many things today. So it was even a non-Muslim who wrote that particular book. Quran is ahead of its time. Muslims know what others don't know. Now today, how can one explain if Islam were not to be divine, that fast in 7th century, that father were not known in 7th century. That was a, how can such far be recorded and be found to be in line with the current trend? Like I always say, at a time there was nothing like science, not scientists. There are a lot of scientific information in the Quran. And by now that we have scientists, we have technology, none of the scientific messages in the Quran could be deconfirmed. See this. When I say Muslims know what others don't know, National Orientation Agency, they call them NOAA. They don't need to come to the mosque to tell our women that they breastfeed your children, your respective children, because it's already contained in Quran chapter 2, verse 233. When Allah says, nursing mother, breastfeed your respective children for a maximum of 2 years, if you can complete the term. And today, even recently, we have what they call a breastfeeding day. Anybody who goes to the hospital now, a nursing mother goes to the hospital, whether you meet a Muslim a doctor or a non-Muslim doctor, and that medical doctor is to advise a nursing mother. The advice he will give to that particular nursing mother must be in line with what is contained in the Quran. And that was revealed at a time there was nothing like science nor scientists. Again, in Quran chapter 5 or 46, Allah says, may Allah not reckon you and I among those who will regret in the hereafter. Allah says that those who will ultimately be punished in the hereafter, for their punishment to be enduring and everlasting, as soon as the skin of their skin is roasted, it will be replaced with fresh one. Now, ask dermatologists today, dermatologists who are specialists in the study and care of the skin, they will tell you that what is contained in the Quran is accurate along the line of what they know in there. And they now tell us, scientists, dermatologists now tell us that the skin is a pain receptor. If the skin is not there, the skin, the body will not feel any form of pain. Again, in Quran chapter 21, verse 30, Allah says that he has created every living thing from water. Every living thing from water. And scientists have now told us that no less than 70 to 75% of our body constituent is made of water. Again, in the Holy Quran, there are predictions in the Quran, predictions that have come to pass. If the Quran is not divine, it would not have been that way. That is in Quran chapter 10, verse 92. Allah was talking of a Pharaoh. By the time he was about to be drowned, he now discovered that he should accept that Allah exists. And scholars told us that he pronounced the oneness of God. And Allah says it's a belated declaration. But because of that, even with the belatedness of that particular declaration, your body will not get decomposed. That is in the Quran. In 2006, I was at an international conference in Cairo. And at the end of the conference, we were taking the to Royal Mummy Chamber, where we saw the lifeless body of a Pharaoh as predicted accurately in the Quran. Again, Quran chapter 55, verse 33, Allah says therein, "O assembly of men and jinn, if you have the capacity and the capability to go beyond the confines of the earth, go, but you will not be able to go except with divine permission." In the 2018, I was in Washington and I was taken to Space Museum, where I saw how manufacturing of an airplane started and so many things like that. Today, we now have what they call people. Neil Armstrong has gone to the moon. We are even told that people have even built what they call International Space Station on the moon. They are even now saying that within some time it could become possible to buy land in the moon. That has been predicted in the Quran. And by the time that was being predicted in the Quran, the tools, technical tools, which that will become possible, nobody could imagine that such tools will even be obtainable. So when you are talking along the line of Islam being my choice, I also say that Islam is divine, it is not design. Islam is divine, it's not design. You cannot alter anything in Islam. In the Quran, for example, Quran chapter 15, verse 9, Allah says, "Inna nahnu nazzalna dhikra wa inna lahu lahafizun." It is Allah who has revealed the Quran, and Allah will ensure that the Quran remains intact. It is only book. I am not aware of any book, no matter how scholastic, no matter how intellectual, no matter how suave anybody could be, not even the like of Wole Soyinka, who has won a Nobel laureate, can write any book and claim that this particular book will become is an authority and will remain untouchable forever. Nobody. Whereas there is a daring challenge for everybody in the Quran to know that this book is not ordinary. Quran chapter 2, verse 23. Allah says, "Wa in kuntum fi raybin mimma nazalna ala abudina fa'tu bi suratin min mithlihi wad'u shuhada'akum min dunillah in kuntum sadiqin wa in lam taf'alu falan taf'alu wattaqun nara allati waquduha an-nas wal hijara uiddat lil kafirin." Meaning, if you doubt the authenticity or credibility of this book, then bring up the like of a verse thereof. And if you cannot do that, and there is a parenthesis, and you will never be able to do that, then fear Allah and the punishment of ultimate fire. The Quran is not an ordinary book by any form of a definition. Again, what is applicable to the Quran is not applicable to any other book. The Quran is not reviewable, it's not even substitutable. It is there. Our forefathers, the way they read the Quran is the way those of us of a present generation are reading the Quran, and future generation will also read the Quran in the same way. Again, when we are talking along of Islam being divine and not design, so many things. Islam is divine, it's not a design. For example, if Islam were to be designed, at least we will have change a number of things in Islam. See it in the way of our worship. Bashimankino, to buy back niti Quran in Islam ni tí ó kì í ṣe tọ́lọ́run. Àwọn èèyàn wa ò bá ti màmá, wọn ò bá ti tọwọ́ bọ́ bá ṣe ń kírun nínú gbogbo orun tá a máa kí, irun tó le jù lára wa nínú àsùnbà. Ìgbà táwọn bá tún fẹ́ pàsùnbà yẹn wọ́n ní as-salatu khayrun minan nawm. Irun tí ẹ wá tá a ní kẹ́ ẹ wá kí ó dáa ju orun lọ. If we hold the yam and the knife, we will have altered the whole thing. Àbáyọ ìyẹn kúrò ń bẹ̀ pé Ọlọ́run ó yẹ kó yé wọ náà pa orun máa ń dùn máa wá ń gbà yẹn. You cannot, Islam is divine, it's not design. Tó bá jẹ́ pé àwọn èèyàn bá lè dọ́gbọ́n sí ni, the way, the protocol and procedure of fasting will also have been altered. Fasting in Islam is not benchmark for a particular time. Sometimes it will be during the rainy season, sometimes it will fall during the dry season. If you hold the yam and the knife, honestly, we will have stagnated it to be during the rainy season. We can't do that one. Tó bá jẹ́ pé àwa Mùsùlùmí, tó bá jẹ́ pé àwa la bá tún lágbára ká máa ṣe Islam bó ṣe wù wá ni, tó bá jẹ́ pé àdádálẹ̀ ní tí èsì àgbékalẹ̀ Ọlọ́run báwọn yòókù ṣe rí, àbá ti oríṣiríṣi nǹkan la bá ṣe. Bí àwọn èèyàn wá ṣe ń sin òkú sí burial in Islam. Burial in Islam is a status blind. Nítorí ó jẹ́ wọ́n sin ordinary lè ní. Àwọn olówó bá ti bá wa change ẹ̀. Even àrí àwọn Christians kan tó kọ òzì sàlá, ó wá ní Ànábì Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ó nídìí tí ó fi ní káwọn Mùsùlùmí máa gbẹ́ kòtò jìn ni pé òun náà fẹ́ jí dìde bí Jésù ṣe jí dìde. Ó fẹ́ jí dìde bí Jésù jí dìde, ọ̀rọ̀ tí ò bá làákàyè mu. Tó bá jẹ́ pé àwa Mùsùlùmí, àwa la lè máa ṣe operation fún Islam ni oríṣiríṣi nǹkan. Àbá ti máa dára sí bí wọ́n ṣe ń sin òkú. Ẹ máa sin tó lówó báyìí, ẹ máa sin ti tálákà báyìí. Irun táǹkì nínú mọ́ṣáláṣí gangan ìbá ti níbi tí àwọn kan máa jókòó sí nínú church fún àpẹẹrẹ status náà fi ń jókòó mbẹ̀. Eléyìí ò possible nínú Islam. Bí a bá ń sọ̀rọ̀ Islam, that Islam is divine, it is not design. So many things. Ẹ̀yin ẹ wo Quran àwa Mùsùlùmí. It is only a book that could be memorized word for word, letter by letter, from beginning to the end. There is only now the new craze is for people to memorize Quran, and we have so many people who are memorizing the Quran. I'm not aware of any other book that will be as voluminous as the Quran and people will memorize. And when you are talking of memorization of the Quran, it's not even ordinary memorization. No. People will memorize the technical pronunciation. They will memorize how to stop the punctuation mark appropriately, how to stop at the appropriate punctuation mark, everything like that. They memorize it. Why is this so? Because Islam is divine. It is not a design. The prophet of Islam, he lived above his generation. He lived above his generation. That was why I was talking of a dynamism the other time. Now, if you go to the Quran, the longest verse in the Quran, Quran chapter 2, verse 282, ask lawyers about law of evidence. They will tell you that they could take a cue, and they have even taken a cue from what is recorded in Quran chapter 2, verse 282. How, when you want to enter into any contractual agreement, now see the details there. It is there in the Quran. Again, the prophet lived above his generation. See the economic principle of Islam. Economic principle of Islam is applicable to present time. When Buhari was the president of Nigeria, yeah, he even took a sukuk bond and to fund a number of road construction and so many things like that. And today, we have so many cooperative societies using the economic principle, and they are flourishing. Even in UK there, I know that some people are using the Islamic form of economic policy there. So when you are talking along the line of Islam being divine and not design, my choice and why it will remain my choice, honestly, I have built it on the USP, unique selling point. For me to leave some time for you to ask questions, I think I should stop at this particular juncture. And I should pray that those of you who left Nigeria to go to that particular place, I pray that your life, your respective life should be on a trajectory, shall be on a, your respective life shall be on a trajectory of good, better, best. And by last grace, the rest of your life shall be the best of your life. I thank you so profusely for giving me this opportunity to address you on this topic, why